Hey, so I'll make a new video on my updated Shadow Blades Falconer. Go over the whole build, and my endgame planner, and all that. So I pushed up to 700 corruption, which is quite high. I don't know that many people who also push this high. So yeah, the build is very strong and it's performing better than I thought, despite the Shadow Blades nerf. So yeah, let's do a map real quick to show you the build, and then I'll go over all the gear and all the skills and all that. So yeah, 700 corruption is very tanky and a lot of damage. As you can see, it's 700% more life and 700% more damage. But despite that, we're still quite tanky. And for the most part, we're not really at risk of dying. It certainly can happen with the correct mobs like hitting you at the same time. But yeah, it's pretty rare to die. So I built this character to be quite tanky because of the new model system. You really do have to be tanky. If you're not tanky, you're not going to push corruption. That's why I think the shield is kind of mandatory. You can see our damage is quite good still, despite not dual welding. One thing to note is that if you're not moving, you are quite squishy. You get quite a bit of DR while moving, 32% to be exact. So it's important to always be moving as this build. So like, you know, not moving and looking at loot can certainly get you killed. Yeah, as you can see, our damage is completely fine for this older monolith. Most things either die in 1 or 2 aerial assaults. And the build is also quite fast. It's probably the fastest build you could play right now, I would imagine, especially when fully even max, which I'll show in the build planner. You can make it even faster than what I'm doing at, like probably 50% faster. Yeah, you can speed farm 700 monos, no issue, as you can see right here. So it's a very, very nice speed farm build. Whether you want corruption or if you want, you know, boss drops and all that. So yeah, let's go over the build real quick. So essentially the build is entirely focused around Shadow Blades. Now Shadow Blades is not a skill you spec into, it's a passive inside your skills. And we proc Shadow Blades through Umbral Blades, which is procced through Aerial Assault. So Aerial Assault is the main skill of the entire build. You press this once, it summons 6 blades, 3 explode instantly, and the other 3 stick around until they also hit mobs and explode. So you're getting 6 blades worth of damage per 1 Aerial Assault, which is extremely strong. And Aerial Assault also makes you do Shadow Dagger's damage as well. So yeah, this is the whole basics of the build. Is you just press E once, you get 6 blades of explosions and it's a ton of damage. The other 2 main skills that you use is Smoke Bomb and Net. You really never press the other 2 skills. This can be Decoy if you want, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you just have Falcon Strikes on your bar, so your Falcon is out and about, as that is important for the build actually. So yeah, you never press the skill, as it does no damage and does waste your mana, but you do need it on your bars to have your Falcon. So yeah, so for here, we're just going for the basics. When you really need explosive blades, if you don't have explosive blades, your blades won't explode, which is bad because they don't explode, then you're going to miss 3 blades of damage. Outside of that, it's just the standard tree. We are cold conversion on this, so keep in mind, even though we are converted to cold, we still want to focus on physical damage because our main damage, which is coming from Shadow Daggers, is pure physical. We're just converting to cold just to get chill stacks, as chill is a pretty nice defensive layer on enemies. Now you don't have to convert to cold if you don't want to, but it is just some extra defense, as you know, blades, Umbral Blades specifically, isn't that much of your DPS. Like 90% of your damage is just from Shadow Daggers, so keep that in mind. Aerial Assault, the important things here is, of course, once again, the Shadow Daggers, the cooldown reductions. This Healing Gust and Gustborn, I think Gustborn is kind of optional, but Healing Gust is very nice as you use this consistently. The very, very low cooldown, as you can see, 2.4 seconds. So yeah, I do like Gustborn just because when you do use Aerial Assault, I'd rather have the ward because you have your leech, and after you come down from Aerial Assault, you probably instantly leech up to full HP anyway. So then you have, you know, full HP plus some ward if you took some damage before Aerial Assault. Outside of that, I have caltrops here. So caltrops does affect the CDR of your aerial assault. It apparently does proc skyward swoop, so it's just a little bit extra CDR on your aerial assault, which is important. As you see in this build, we do want to stack as much CDR as possible, as it's both your main movement skill and your main damage skill, which allows you to do monoliths very fast, which is what this build is meant for. So yeah, outside of that, I'll use for some frailty, and yeah, that's really it. So the other main skill here is the smoke bomb. Smoke bomb is just really nice damage and very high defense. So the main defensive from smoke bomb is the glancing blows that we get and the silver shroud. So silver shroud is quite insane, and it's even better because we're stacking CDR. So the ECR smoke bomb's only a 6.8 second cooldown, and we get a silver shroud stack every time we use it. This makes you guaranteed to dodge the next hit, which is extremely strong on bosses because bosses generally don't hack that often. Combined with our other silver shroud stack from our passive tree, which we'll go over in a bit, you have these silver shroud stacks up really often, which makes you extremely tanky for bosses. I usually just constantly have this guaranteed dodge for almost like every single boss hit. Specifically because you are stacking a cooldown reduction, as you see here. So yeah, outside of that, you just get some damage, and most importantly, you do get glancing blows from your smoke bomb, quite a bit actually. The last two skills is just net and puncture. So I'm using net and puncture just for utility essentially. It gives a little bit of damage, but it's not really for the damage, it's for the utility. Net applies frailty stacks. It also gives you some global damage, and most importantly, it makes enemies cannot dodge and cannot avoid crits. So these two mods are pretty much like the worst mods you can get in monoliths for a crit build, but net completely negates it. Now enemies cannot dodge and they also can avoid crits, so your damage is completely fine. So yeah, net's very, very nice utility. It applies debuffs, makes enemies deal less physical damage. Frailty stacks, cannot dodge, cannot crit, global damage. It's just really a lot of utility for a one button essentially. And because aerial assault's our main damage and it has a cooldown, we can use it in between aerial assaults, no issue. And then we have puncture. The reason why we have puncture is because you can apply puncture for free through your net. And puncture is just also some more utility. You get frenzy, you get physical red shred, and you get armor shred. So it juices up your aerial assault damage essentially, while also giving you frenzy as well. So it's not insane. You could definitely drop puncture. Some people are using dive bomb for more damage, but as you just want out monolith, damage is not the issue. If anything, the main issue with the build right now is defense, which that's why I've been trying to build a tanky, specifically going with a shield. So yeah, damage on this build is pretty good. It's really, really high, and you can even go higher than what I just showed, way higher in fact, like triple my damage probably with the correct gear. So yeah, you can get triple this current damage. Damage is not the issue, which is why I'm not going dive bomb, because the issue of this build specifically is the defense. You just simply do not have the defense. But with that said, it is a speed farming build, and so it doesn't matter if you can't push all the way to the high corruption if you can speed farm, like speed farm 700 monoliths or so. So yeah, let's talk about the passive tree real quick. So the passive tree, it's pretty basic. A lot of these are the same. I think the only thing I want to talk about that's a notable passive here is this deflect and wave. So specifically, only take 4 points in this. If you take 5 points, you lose all your block, which is bad. As you can see, we have 81% chance to block. We do not want to convert this to glance and blows, because that would be a massive waste of block essentially. We also have 20% dodge and 14% armor from damage reduction. We do have a lot more dodge as well. You do get more dodge when you use the smoke shroud. As you can see, if we're doing like a boss fight or something, we stay in a smoke shroud, we have like 36% chance to dodge, which is quite strong and synergizes very well with your cradle, because cradle loses a stack whenever you block. So if you're also dodging 1/3 attacks, you keep a high amount of golden Ega stacks. So you pretty much always have your high block chance. So yeah, the main defense of this build is block, dodge, and glance and blows. Of course, you also have capped endurance, And you also have the Silver Shrouds, which, as I said before, is extremely strong for bosses. So it is an overall pretty tanky build, but it's not really going to compete with those, high stack and ward builds. Life builds are just squishier. That's just how it is, unfortunately. But yeah, in the current game, life builds can't get all that tanky compared to the ward builds. But for what it is, this still is a very tanky build, especially for a rogue. So yeah, we're getting block nodes and we're getting defense blow nodes to try to cap both of them out. Keep in mind, we're still not focusing on our Falcon. I've got this question a few times. We don't really take any Falcon nodes because we're not doing any pet damage in the first place. And also to talk about Tailwind. So Tailwind, you get 6% damage taken while moving, and it doubles when your Falcon hits. And then we also have Evasion, another negative 20%, so for a total of negative 32% damage taken while moving. This is what I mean by it's very important. You always have to be moving, because if you're not moving and you stand still, you're losing 32% damage reduction, which is quite huge. So yeah, make sure you're always moving as this build to get a massive DR bonus. Outside of that, yeah, we're just taking all the glancing nodes, all the dodge nodes, and all the block nodes that we can, and the really, really good damage nodes. So just go over my defense real quick. So yeah, we have 81% chance to block. We do have 90% chance to glance in, but this is kind of fake because it's from this node where if you have not been hit recently, you double your glance in. So if we have been hit, this goes to 45% glance in. But if you are in Smoke Bomb, Smoke Bomb makes you go up to 107%, so it would be 85% chance if you have been hit. And specifically, there's a chest space that gives you 15% glance in, which is what I want in the end game. So if you have this chest and you're in Smoke Bomb, you would still be glancing below the cap, even if you have been hit recently, and that is the end goal. So yeah, that is all our defense. So I guess let's go to the end game build planner now to finish off the video. So I made this full best in slot list, and I'll also link down my current character down below. So there's like a more realistic character that you can easily farm out. And if you really want to giga farm the character out, I made this full end game character. So just go over the brief of what we have here. So the most important roles here is always going to be the exalted stats. So Fizz Pen with Shadow Daggers, you want them both helmet and chest. This is a massive damage multiplier. As you can see in game, I don't have this exalted on either. It's pretty rare. As far as I heard, there's actually none even up on the auction house if you're Merchant's Guild. So yeah, it is pretty rare, but maybe you can find it as COF. And then we're trying to stack multi, throw damage, and health everywhere else. And of course, you also want armor shred. So here we have like throw damage, pen and health. Here we have crit multi, throw damage and health. Once again, health and pen. Dex is good if it's like a good affix. So yeah, that's the basics of all the gear. The weapon, we're going for an Obsidian Dagger base. The reason why we're going for Obsidian, not a Chris, because getting a Chris in late game seems to be extraordinarily rare, to the point it's just not very realistic. So the best base after that is the Obsidian Dagger, which is actually quite common, and it is pretty good. It has 43 flat damage, and it has 80% increased physical damage. You just want multi melee fizz damage and armor shred on this. The chance to slow and increase melee damage don't really matter. It's just on there because it's Biss. Chance to slow can also be anything, by the way. Yeah, and this is also the base I was talking about. It has 15% chance to receive a glance and blow. So if you have this chest and you're in Smoke Bomb, you will be glance and blow cap regardless if you've been hit recently or not. Cradle. So Cradle is extremely strong, like I've been saying, and technically this is the best slot Cradle you could get, but getting these 4 mods on a single shield is extremely unrealistic, to the point where it probably just simply won't happen. So you want to look out for at least 2 out of these 4 mods. I think that's pretty realistic. That's what I've been going for. I don't think it's that bad. I think like health and block chance and block effectiveness, health and reduce damage taken on blocks. Just try to get 2 out of these 4 mods on your Cradle and you're set. I think block chance is the best one, just because if you have 24% chance to block on your Cradle, that would actually cap your block. So as you can see, I am 81% chance. So if I had that block chance on my Cradle, I would be cap block, which is extremely strong. So every single hit you're taking is just negative 45% damage, and even more if you get the block effectiveness on your shield, as currently I do not. So yeah, We're gonna leech from our anguish. You can also get more leech on gloves if you want, but from anguish alone seems to be good enough. Outside of that, cooldown recovery on both your belt and boots. And you want reduced mana cost on both your rings. If you don't have reduced mana cost on your rings, then spamming your net will actually drain your mana quite fast. So keep that in mind. I still run out of mana currently, but once you get double exalted mana cost on your rings, you actually won't run out of mana at all. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. I guess items. Items, you want Fizz Pen with Shadow Daggers. And I give you a few options here. So you can get life, you can get res, you can get increased shred armor effect. You don't really need more than one of these, by the way. One increased armor shred effect is good, but two is unnecessary. But yeah, so you go life, res, or just, you know, nothing, whatever. For idols, you just want life and res as well. So, you know, in game, I have light and res health, elemental res and health. I have void res and vitality. If you need like vitality or fizz res, then you get these idols instead, which get vitality, which is worse than life, but you know, you really want to make sure you're cap resist. As you can see, I'm a little bit under cap here, but it's not too bad. In this game, if you're like 4 or 5% under cap res, it's not that bad. So yeah, essentially just use 4 of these with Fizz Pen with Shadow Daggers, and then fill out whatever res you need with the other idols. And then one last thing to go over real quick is the belt. So if you want to go really fast, and why this build is probably the fastest in the game, is because of Jungle Queen. So if you get a Jungle Queen belt, this gives you 16 potion slots. Specifically, if you get one with LP and get cooldown recovery on it, it will be absolutely insane. So why is this insane? Because there's a belt mod right here that reduces the cooldown of your traversal skill whenever you use a potion. So if you have this traversal mod on your Jungle Queen along with cooldown reduction, essentially you can just infinitely use Aerial Assault. And so use Aerial Assault, Potion, Aerial Assault, Potion, and use absolutely speed to monoliths, and you'll have 16 potions. So you will have enough potions for the full monolith. So yeah, Jungle Queen with those mods is probably the fastest farming build in the game. Very, very strong, and it's an option you can go if you can get it yourself. You probably need a 2 LP Jungle Queen. The cooldown recoveries probably isn't mandatory if you at least just get the traversal skill cooldown on potion use. But yeah, that is an option you can go for. But yeah, that's about it. I have the whole skills and passes here as well. And I'll link down this in the description below, along with my current build. So you get to both the Endgame, GG Biz, and my current, I say, very realistic build you can also farm for. If you have any questions, feel free to let them comment below. And I also stream daily on Twitch if you want to watch, or if you have any questions. But yeah, that's about it.